The reason a customer is clicking and staying on your website is because when they log on, they're like, this person gets me.
Totally.
This person is, this is this light bulb moment. They're saying things. It sounds like they're in my head. That is the exact phrase that you want them to be able to say. Hey, I'm Lindy Cohen. I'm a dietitian and I help people who know what they should be eating but really struggle with staying on track and who feel like every Monday they have to start again from scratch.
Lindy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Can we talk about the Nude Nutritionist, where the name came from, and hopefully that will unravel some of why you started your business and where that initial vision came from?
It's such a good question. So the Nude Nutritionist to me is all about being stripped bare and back to basics. It's about keeping it real. It's about not getting caught up in all the nutrition nonsense and noise and really just telling it how it is. And that's this whole, being nude idea. And so it really resonated with me. When I first got the business name, my dad wasn't a big fan, but I think it grew on him. And I just really like how it resonates with me. And it's grown with me really well. And I will share something that originally I wasn't going to have a brand name, because very often these days we are encouraged to have our personal name as our personal brand. But for me, I had quite a complicated last name before I was married, and I knew I was going to get married at some point, and I knew whatever name I was going to take on was going to be simpler than the one that I had. And so the Nude Nutritionist in some ways was a bridging brand. It was because my last name was Lindy Polivnik, which is very hard to spell and pronounce. Now I'm Lindy Cohen. And so the Nutritionist really helped me do that. So that was quite an interesting thing that I decided to do, a bit strategic from the get-go.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And actually, I hear a lot of clients ask me, should I use my name? Should I have a brand, to represent me? Were there any benefits of having the Nude Nutritionist for you in terms of that building, credibility or building more brand equity or anything else?
For sure. I mean, I always personally, my vibe is that a brand name should very clearly tell you what I'm about very quickly. So Nude Nutritionist, you know that I'm a nutritionist. You know I'm probably going to be a little bit edgy or try to tell it how it is. And that's very much spelled out in my brand name. And I think also having a brand name that's quite sticky and quite memorable is really useful. So people might not remember my name. In fact, people butcher my name all the time. I'm Belinda or Lindsay or Linda. But the Nude Nutritionist is something that everyone seems to be able to get their head around. And it's the title of my first book. It's also my Instagram handle. So it's probably a lot easier for someone to go, this is this nutritionist, I think it's a Nude Nutritionist, and they don't even need to remember my name.
Let's talk about the business of being an expert. When you first started out, you worked obviously in a product brand, which you've just mentioned. The steps that you took to then set up, was it your first private practice, seeing clients one-to-one? Can you describe that next phase of the journey and what it was like to, be in the early days of getting clients? Was it easy? Was it hard? Had you started to build an audience at that point?
I had made so many mistakes in those first few years, starting up my one-on-one client base. So I started by seeing one family friend who, reached out and needed support. And I charged them a very small fee because even at that point, I understood that there was something that psychologically that happened when someone gives you money for a service. It's not about you earning money. I mean, it was barely any money, but there was something about their commitment to what they were now doing with me. And I think that's very valuable. It was just almost like a token fee. And so there was an exchange of energy going on. There was an exchange of money. And so I started seeing this client and I put a lot of energy into helping this client. Meanwhile, I'm still working at the other company.
Okay.
I've got a few other jobs at the time, so I'm not dependent on this for money. And I didn't rent a room. I basically would just, go to her house and see her and start to consult, or she'd come to mine and I had like a little room off the side of my house where I'd see people. And so I was really hell-bent on making this a very positive experience, and it was a positive experience for her. And she told a few more people. And in a way, word of mouth really did support my business. Once I had a few more clients, and once again was really still working those other jobs so that I wasn't dependent on this as an income stream, I was busy creating all my resources. I was busy getting my ideology sorted and practicing those really key skills that, I was just a new grad and I didn't really have anyone to teach me. And so after a while, I had built up a bit of a client base. So what I did is I decided I was going to now rent a room. And so I rented a room twice a week for a few hours, and I waited for my clients to come see me. But inevitably what would happen is on the very days that I'd hired the room, my clients couldn't come see me. They couldn't come see me at those times. They simply wouldn't show. And as a result is I spent more money than I ever earned by renting that place. But it was a really, really important learning for me about overheads, about having a lean business and a nimble business. And so I pivoted from that point, and I thought, what was really great was when I was going to people's houses, when they were coming to me, because that way I didn't have the overhead of rent, which is, a huge contributor to many early businesses. If my clients, let's say it's a holiday period and everyone seems to go away during December, Jan, I didn't then need to continue paying rent when I wasn't earning an income. And from a business perspective, I could then say to my clients, well, actually, you don't have to sit in traffic, and I will come to you and you can show me the very products in your pantry. And they loved that. And I loved it from a lean business perspective. So that worked really well. And that's how I grew, and I built that up further and further.
Just one thing that you wish that you had known when you first started out on your business journey.
One thing that I wish I knew. I think we did talk about it, but this idea that you don't need to be perfect to start, and you will, no, not only do you not have to be perfect, you will be bit crap. You will not write great copy. You will make mistakes. You will have typos. You will do the wrong thing. You will mess up. And without doing these things, you will not be able to have a great business. So that's something I wish I knew, that failure is intrinsic to success.
Spot on. What's one thing that you wish you had done sooner in your business?
Hide people around me. And I still have a hard time doing this, of letting go. I'm getting better at it. But I still spend I'm pretty much everything you see about my business. I am still across absolutely everything. And I need to find a way to make that more sustainable.
I guess it's a work in progress, let's call it.
Yeah, it always is.
Why do you do what you do?
I truly believe in what I stand for, and this idea that I think the health industry is not serving people. When we have people who are trying diet after diet, and they're gaining weight as a result, and they're feeling awful in themselves and more unhealthy the more information they have. And that, to me, shows that there is an issue. And what's exciting to me is I can see what I want to try and create, which is a world where what you look like is not associated with how healthy you are, where people know that they can be healthy, but they don't have to sacrifice 95% of their life to get to that point. And so I've got a very clear vision of where I want this to go.
What's the best part of your job day to day?
Eating the food that I get to make.
Your recipes are always amazing. That's got to be a fun part of the job. What's the best piece of advice that you have been given along the way?
I think what I've gotten a lot better at is being able to not let my business control every waking thought. Especially in the beginning, in the early phases, I spent a lot of time in my business. I worked all the time. I think it's a common mistake that you have where you think, if I'm self-employed, I'll get to be more flexible. I'll get to go to the beach at lunchtime. I'll get to do all these things. I worked harder for myself than I ever would have working for an employer. So I think there is a part of that where you've got to be prepared to do quite a bit of hard work, and you've got to enjoy it. And the best advice I have for that I received is to try and create some really clear boundaries around work. especially when I work with my husband now, and I find it very hard as well, as, it could be a Saturday night at 10 p.m. and we're talking about business. It's 7 a.m. in bed, we're talking about business. It never ends. And I love it. But ultimately, I'm a multidimensional human. I'm not just a
part
business.
of it.
Yeah, so set some nice clear boundaries for yourself and then stick to them.
That's great advice. You talked about building your own website, and you also talked earlier about really honing your philosophy. So how did it shift your messaging? Did you really then start to position yourself online in that niche of emotional eating and binge eating and kind of own that specialty?
Yeah, I really did. And I started to notice what my clients were saying. I think so often when we're trying to create marketing, we're thinking about how we, as the person, the outsider, is seeing the problem. I became obsessed, and I still am obsessed with understanding my clients' problems. And I don't want to, put words in their mouth. If someone is telling me their problem, I want to know the exact language they're using to explain that problem. And I have spreadsheets and I have all these folders. I have so many folders, which is basically just sentences and phrases and people explaining their problem to me in a myriad of different ways so that I can fully understand the real problem that I'm solving. I'm not going, all right, well, this is the solution. And, I think some people do that. They focus on the solution first and then they find a problem to fix. I focus on the problem that I'm fixing and then I build the solution around that. And so everything on my website is about my customer. It's not, I think a lot of people, they build these expert websites and it's very much about, you can be the center and you can tell your story and the brand is ultimately you. But the reason a customer is clicking and staying on your website is because when they log on, they're like, this person gets me.
Totally.
This person is, this is this light bulb moment. They're saying things. It sounds like they're in my head. That is the exact phrase that you want them to be able to say. And so when I started doing this, when I became obsessed with insights, and then I reflected it back to my customer, they understood that I got them because I'm not just anyone. I have this lived experience plus the expertise. So I got to say though, so this is seven years ago when I started my practice or my business, The New Nutritionist, and I was nowhere near where I am now. And this is a constant evolution. I would say that I hop onto my website every couple of months and I review all the copy and I fix it. And I'm constantly refining it. So it's never a done process.
As far as kind of juggling those various hats, being the marketing person in your business, being the operations person, managing client relationships, all of those things, how have you kind of found that balance of doing it yourself versus, maybe bringing in outside expertise or educating yourself on kind of the business of running an expert business in nutrition?
Yeah, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I think a lot of people go into the health industry thinking that what they're going to do is be able to spend a lot of time on the health. And what ends up happening is that 80% of your job becomes business and 20% becomes the thing that you're now an expert on.
Right.
And I think that's really important to notice that ultimately you have to have a strong business and you should get paid well for helping people. If what you're doing is contributing goodness to this world, then you should be getting paid for that service. And I think more than anyone, more than the people out there who are ripping people off and, in making investments or whatever, we're ultimately really helping people. So we need to find a way for that to be sustainable and smart. Now, I would say I am quite interested in business as it is. I'm clearly interested in communications and marketing and the way that people speak. I'm interested in psychology and humans. I love design. And so I think all these kinds of things means that I actually quite enjoy doing this work. I think sometimes I get too excited about things like branding and design. And what's been really important for me is to realize that that is a nice to have. And I think sometimes what people will do is they'll launch their business and they'll spend an insane amount of money getting this beautiful logo and this beautiful branding and this gorgeous website. But fundamentally, they haven't got the credentials, they don't have the fundamentals sorted. And for me, one of the hardest things was always going, when at one point I will work on getting the design better and I will work on the branding, but no one really cares about your logo. Can I just be really honest? No one cares about your logo. You care about your logo, but unless you're Coca-Cola, no one can recognize your logo. So stop being obsessed by it. Let it go. Your brand colors, yes, align with them, play with them, but then no one cares.
Thank you so much, Lindy. I've loved speaking to you. I know our audience will take a lot from this conversation, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing. It's inspiring and it's motivating and it's clearly very fulfilling for you. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.